Hey guys, Josh from soccerreviewsforyou.com, bringing you a comparison video today between the MagistaX Proximo and Proximo Street, as well as the MercurialX Proximo and Proximo Street. We're going to be comparing the differences as well as the similarities, and hopefully make your decision a little bit easier if you are trying to decide between either of these two models. So with that being said, let's get right into the comparison. To start things off, let's compare the uppers of both the MagistaX and MercurialX models. Now you're probably wondering why I have 4 shoes on the table in front of me as opposed to just 2, and that's because each of these models has 2 different variations. In the case of the MercurialX line, the red pair is the MercurialX Proximo, whereas the black and white pair is the Proximo Street. With the MagistaX line, the orange pair is the MagistaX Proximo, and the black and white pair is the Proximo Street. So what's the difference between the Proximo and the Proximo Street variations of what is supposed to be the same shoe? Now in the case of the MagistaX, the difference is quite significant. The orange pair, the regular Proximo, is essentially the stock Magista Obra upper, Flyknit base, mid-cut design, with the added strip of kind of the sandpaper-like texturing running through the forefoot and toe box area, right where the upper meets the sole of the shoe, kind of as an added durability element, just to strengthen that area of the upper, because it is a very high wear zone. So if you've worn a pair of Magista Obras in the past, perhaps the firm ground variation of the shoe, this upper is going to feel exactly the same, which is really, really good. In the case of the MagistaX Proximo Street, it's drastically different in that you do have the same Magista Obra Flyknit base, the mid-cut design of course, but on top of that Flyknit, as opposed to having a thin layer of Nike skin, you have a very thin layer of natural leather, which is very interesting. You can see the cutoff point is right here, runs through the midfoot, through the forefoot and toe box area, and then cuts off on this, right about here on the lateral side of the shoe. This very thin layer of leather adds a distinctly more padded sensation when making touches on the ball. It does feel more natural, not only in terms of having that extra padding, but also just the finish that it has in comparison to the Nike skin, which is a little bit more grippy than what you're going to find with this shoe. And then of course you do have the noticeably different suede material that is stitched on top, again running through the forefoot and toe box area and all the high wear zones on the shoe. So distinctly different in comparison to the standard MagistaX Proximo. And if you're trying to decide between these two shoes, if you want something thinner, more along the lines of a standard Magista Obra, the regular Proximo is the way to go. Whereas if you like leather shoes, if you want something with more of a padded sensation on your foot, then the MagistaX Proximo Street is definitely the way to go. As far as what the difference is between the MercurialX Proximo and Proximo Street, there pretty much isn't any difference other than the name. They both feature the exact same Superfly 4 mid-cut Flyknit base, Nike skin covering, and they both have the added texturing in the forefoot and toe area of the upper. Sandpaper-like texturing again, there as a durability kind of enhancer, if you will. It strengthens that area of the upper, and of course adds a little bit of additional grip on the ball. So while the shoes do look a little bit different as far as the colorway is concerned, and while their names are different, the actual performance and the uppers themselves are no different whatsoever. So if you were planning on buying a MercurialX Proximo model, it really doesn't matter which one you get. Just pick whichever colorway you like best. Now, when comparing the MercurialX and MagistaX models, this is basically what you need to know. The MercurialX Proximo is going to provide a thinner, barefoot feel on the ball. The upper is just thinner in general. It's a lot less structured. It does provide a nice responsive, tighter feel on your foot. So if you're looking for that more of a one-to-one sensation, I guess is the best way to put it, then the MercurialX line is definitely what you're looking for if you want that barefoot touch on the ball. With the MagistaX line, the standard MagistaX Proximo is going to be thin, but still have a more structured feel in comparison to the MercurialX Proximo and Proximo Street, just because the Flyknit weave is a little bit more dense. You do have a padded lining on the inside of the shoe, and again, it's thin, but it has that little bit of extra padding to it, whereas the Proximo Street variation of the MagistaX really just feels like a leather shoe with a nice responsive, kind of tight Flyknit base. It's actually a very unique experience in that you get the structure and the responsiveness of a synthetic shoe or the Flyknit model from Nike with that added padded touch the natural feel that you would expect from a leather shoe. The two materials actually work really, really well. And if I were to pick a favorite of all these different variations here, by far I prefer the MagistaX Proximo Street. But again, it really does depend on your preferences. If you want something thinner, go for the MercurialX Proximo or Proximo Street. If you want something just a little bit thicker than that, go for the MagistaX Proximo. And if you want something more padded, more natural, more leather-like, definitely go for the MagistaX Proximo Street. Next, let's compare the midsoles and outsoles featured on both the MercurialX and MagistaX models. Now, in the case of the MercurialX, the midsole is very low profile. The shoe in general is low profile. You have some Phylon foam running from the heel into the midfoot, very thin in the midfoot, as you guys can see. And that's what's going to provide that little bit of underfoot cushioning for this particular shoe. You have some impact protection in the heel, whereas in the forefoot area of the shoe, there's pretty much no foam whatsoever. The only cushioning that you're going to get is from the insole itself. Because there is no real foam midsole here, the shoe is extremely flexible and really has no structure to the front area as well as the midfoot area of the shoe whatsoever. So if underfoot cushioning and impact protection is what you're looking for, that's not what you're going to get from the MercurialX line. They're close to the ground, very, very responsive, pretty much no extra padding whatsoever. And again, if you want that low profile sensation, this shoe does it better than pretty much any other indoor out there on the market right now. As far as the MagistaX is concerned, it features a much more significant midsole, as you guys can see. Instead of being Phylon foam, it's actually made from Lunarlon foam, which is actually a premier foam from Nike. You see it a lot in their higher end running shoes. And it just provides a more responsive sensation than what you're going to find from the MercurialX, not only because of the type of foam, but also the amount that they've used on this shoe. You can see it's much thicker in the heel, and that foam runs all the way into the toe of the shoe as well, and just provides a much more kind of cushioned feel underfoot, a lot more impact protection. A lot of people would call it more comfortable as well because of the extra cushioning, but again, it's a more a matter of preference as opposed to one being better than the other. Because of the extra foam, obviously it sits a lot higher off the ground in comparison to the MercurialX, which is something that I know not everybody likes. So again, you're going to get a much more low profile feel from the MercurialX versus the MagistaX. But again, if impact protection is something that you like, if that's what you're looking for, the MagistaX does it a lot better than the MercurialX model. As far as the outsoles are concerned, both of these shoes in both variations are available in both indoor and turf bottoms that really don't differ between the two models whatsoever. You can see this is the MercurialX indoor bottom, has this kind of hexagon type pattern there. It works pretty well in indoor courts as well as on concrete. If you want to use this for street soccer, it holds up pretty well. And like I said, the traction is just good overall. This is something that we've seen previously on the Elastico Superfly that has transitioned into the MercurialX line, so it's really nothing new. In the case of the MagistaX, Nike has pretty much just recycled the exact same pattern. It's not laid out identically, of course, but it's very, very similar, and the performance, like I said, is pretty much the same. They are definitely on par with each other as far as traction is concerned for both the indoor as well as the turf variations, so don't let that be the deciding factor if you're trying to pick between the MagistaX as well as the MercurialX. For me, if you're comparing the midsoles and the outsoles, the biggest difference here is that you get pretty much no cushioning with the MercurialX, which is not a bad thing. You just get that nice low profile feel, whereas the MagistaX, like I said, is all about underfoot cushioning, but of course they aren't as close to the ground, not as light, not as thin, and not quite as flexible either. So it really is a big trade-off here, a really big difference between the two shoes, and it's really a matter of preference in terms of which one is going to be better suited for you. As far as weight is concerned, I don't think it should be too much of a surprise that the MercurialX line is a little bit lighter than what you're going to find from the MagistaX models, but for the sake of comparison, so we can see exactly what the differences are, we're going to be weighing in both variations in real time using this scale. We're going to start off with the Proximo models and then move on to the Proximo Street variations. Keep in mind these are both in brand new condition. The MercurialX is a size 9 US and the MagistaX is a size 9.5 US. We'll start off with the MercurialX Proximo, throw it on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at 8.55 ounces, the equivalent of 242 grams. So actually pretty light for a pair of indoor shoes. Pull these off and we'll throw on the MagistaX Proximo, and you can see that they weigh in at 9.4 ounces. So they do have some extra weight in comparison to the MercurialX, almost a full ounce, the equivalent of 266 grams. So they don't come across as being quite as light when on feet, but again, the overall feel is a lot different, not only due to the upper, but also due to the amount of underfoot cushioning. So for me, weight really shouldn't be the deciding factor. It should really be about what type of feel that you're looking for. As far as the street models go, the Proximo Street MercurialX model is going to be very similar to the standard Proximo, whereas the MagistaX Proximo Street, because of the added leather as well as the suede on the upper, actually weighs a little bit more than the standard Proximo variation. So again, we're going to weigh in both variations real time using this scale. This is a size 9 US, this is a size 9.5 US. We'll start off with the Mercurial, throw it on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at 8.7 ounces, the equivalent of 246 grams. Again, pretty light for a pair of indoors. Change the scale back to ounces, pull these off, and we'll throw on the MagistaX Proximo Street, and you can see that they weigh in at 9.85 ounces, the equivalent of 279 grams. So out of all four shoes that we've showed in today's video, this is the heaviest, not by much. You're talking about half an ounce more weight in comparison to the MagistaX Proximo, the standard variation. But again, weight really shouldn't be the deciding factor here. It should be all about feel. So again, if you're trying to decide between the Proximo and Proximo Street in the MercurialX line, just pick whichever colorway you like best, because there's really not much of a difference. In the case of the MagistaX Proximo and Proximo Street, if you want that thinner feel, go for the Proximo. If you want that leather-like touch on the ball, go for the Proximo Street. Alright, so here is a look at the MercurialX and MagistaX Proximo Street models on feet. If you guys were wondering about the laces, these are premium SR4U replacement laces. If you're interested in a pair for yourself, check out the website sr4ulaces.com. It'll be linked in the description of this video. Now, as far as how these things fit and feel on feet, they're distinctly different from each other. In the case of the MercurialX Proximo and Proximo Street, there's no difference in fit and feel whatsoever. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, it's a tighter fitting shoe. You get a very responsive sensation, especially when you pull the laces tight. Those Brio cables really do their job as far as supporting your foot and just giving you a nice, tight, secure, kind of locked-in feel. It is by far the most responsive pair of indoor shoes that I've ever worn. And again, as far as underfoot cushioning is concerned, there's really not much here whatsoever. They're very close to the ground, and like I said, very minimal. As far as the MagistaX Proximo and Proximo Street is concerned, while the Proximo Street does have leather on the surface of the upper, it doesn't change how the shoe feels on your feet whatsoever. The leather sits on top of that Flyknit base, so you still have that exact same base for the shoe, the part that wraps your foot, the part that's making contact with your foot. So again, the fit and feel is no different whatsoever. They're very much like a standard pair of Magista Obras. It's still a tighter fitting shoe, similar to what you're going to find from the MercurialX, but not quite as tight. There definitely is some more width to it, and they just feel very, very comfortable on your feet overall. I personally find the MagistaX a little bit more comfortable than the MercurialX model, but again, that's really more a matter of preference. If you want that tighter fit, definitely go for the MercurialX, whereas if you want something that's going to be snug and still very responsive, definitely the MagistaX is the way to go. As far as underfoot cushioning is concerned, again, that Lunarlon base, it does sit a little bit higher off the ground, which I know not everybody likes, but if you don't mind being a little bit higher off the ground, the amount of impact protection and just underfoot cushioning that you get is significantly better than what you're going to find from the MercurialX line. So again, that's more a matter of preference as opposed to one being better than the other. As far as width is concerned, the MercurialX is definitely tighter, not really suitable for wider foot types, whereas the MagistaX isn't particularly wide, but it will be suitable for most people. Neither of these shoes are going to stretch, including the MagistaX Proximo Street. Again, even though it does have a leather upper, it's on top of that Flyknit base, which isn't going to stretch whatsoever. So again, the way these things fit from right out of the box is the way they're going to fit and feel for their entire lifespan. As far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing my usual size 9 US in the MercurialX Proximo Street, and the fit and length is absolutely perfect. If you're looking to order a pair of these for yourself, they do run true to size. In the case of the MagistaX line, I'm wearing a size 9.5 US, half a size larger than I normally wear, and that's because the MagistaX line runs a half size small. So if you are looking to order a pair of these for yourself, I would recommend going a half size up in order to achieve the best possible fit. Alright guys, that's it for my comparison between the MagistaX and MercurialX models. To sum up how you should go about choosing, if you want something that is thin, light, and very similar to that of the Superfly 4, the MercurialX Proximo or Proximo Street are both very, very solid options. In the case of the MagistaX line, if you want something that is exactly the same as the standard Magista Obra upper, definitely go for the Magista Proximo. With that being said, if you want that Magista upper the comfort and the feel of that one-piece Flyknit construction, but with the added padding of natural leather on the surface of that Flyknit upper, then the MagistaX Proximo Street is definitely the way to go. As far as which of all these variations is my personal favorite, I really like the MagistaX Proximo Street and the leather upper. It's just a unique sensation, distinctly different from all the other shoes in the lineup. Not for everybody, but again, if you want that leather-like sensation, this is definitely the way to go. But again, all of these shoes are great options. You can't go wrong either way. It's really a matter of what your preferences are and what exactly you're looking for from either the MagistaX or the MercurialX line. So that's pretty much it for my comparison, guys. If you're interested in purchasing any of these shoes and any of their variations for yourself, check out the review pages on my website. They will all be linked down below in the description of this video. On those review pages, you will find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you will be able to pick up all of these shoes below their normal retail prices. So go ahead and check them out if you are interested in purchasing a pair of these for yourself. If you have any questions at all regarding any of the models discussed in today's video, leave your questions down below in the comment section. I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.